Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Now, today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently.
Oh,
Yeah, we're going to be tackling 50 pieces of advice from a self-made millionaire. It's basically advice that they would give to their 20-year-old self. Reflecting back on their life and what they've learned.
so like a cheat sheet for success from someone who's been there and done that.
Exactly.
Sounds intriguing. I'm always fascinated by those kinds of reflections.
And, sometimes advice from older generations can be a little bit much.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But this person actually built their success from nothing. And their insights are surprisingly relatable and even kind of funny at times.
Well, I'm all ears then.
All right, so we've organized their 50 tips into thematic groups. And first up is mindset and habits. And they kick it off with a pretty powerful one, willpower. They argue that in a world of constant distractions, all these pings and notifications and things, the ability to focus for extended periods is like having a superpower. Without it, you'll never reach your full potential. You'll never be able to really outwork your rivals.
That's so true. It's fascinating how this aligns with the actual science of willpower. Researchers have found that it's not just about discipline. It's a cognitive skill that you can actually train, like a muscle. So the more you practice focusing, the better you become at ignoring distractions and really achieving what some people call deep work, that state of intense concentration where the real breakthroughs happen.
I love that deep work. And this millionaire doesn't just talk the talk. They actually challenge you, the listener, to see if you can make it through this entire deep dive without getting distracted.
Oh, that's a good challenge.
I like it. Consider it a little willpower test. Can you resist the urge to check your phone or switch tabs?
It's a great way to put that idea into practice right away. It begs the question, though, how do we actually cultivate that focus in a world that's designed to constantly grab our attention? Like, what techniques or strategies can we actually use to strengthen our willpower muscle?
Yeah, that's a great question. And building on that idea, this millionaire also emphasizes becoming more of a producer than a consumer.
Oh, that's interesting.
They acknowledge that consuming content is crucial for learning. Reading books, watching documentaries, listening to podcasts like this one. But they urge you to focus on putting more out into the world than you take in.
I see.
Otherwise, you risk becoming overwhelmed by information overload, like a hamster endlessly spinning on a wheel.
That's a great analogy. I can see how that ties into this whole hustle culture debate we hear so much about these days. But instead of just glorifying constant production, it sounds like they're emphasizing the importance of creating value, contributing something meaningful. It's about having a positive impact, not just churning out content for the sake of it.
Exactly. And speaking of having a positive impact, the millionaire is a big believer in kindness, especially towards those who are just starting out. They emphasize that you never know where someone might end up in life. So treating everyone with respect and generosity is not just ethically sound, it's good karma too.
I love that. And it actually aligns with research on networking and success. Studies have shown that people who are perceived as kind and helpful tend to build stronger relationships, which can open doors to opportunities and collaboration. So it's not just about being a good person, it can actually be a strategic advantage.
I like that. I never thought about it that way before. Okay, get ready for this next one because it might seem a little counterintuitive. This millionaire actually advises you to watch what most people are doing and then do the opposite. They credit this contrarian mindset with helping them break free from that 9-to-5 grind and forge their own path.
It's all about challenging the status quo then. If you follow the crowd, you'll likely end up with the same results as everyone else. But if you're willing to go against the grain, think differently, you might just discover a hidden opportunity that no one else has tapped into.
Exactly. They even quote the saying, if you're everyone's cup of tea, then you're a mug.
Yeah.
So think about a time when you felt stuck in a rut. How could this approach have helped you break free and pursue something more fulfilling?
That's a great question for our listeners to think about. Now, shifting gears a bit, the millionaire also offers some valuable advice on relationships. They're very adamant about avoiding gossip and negativity. If you have a problem with someone, they say address it directly, or not at all. Talking behind someone's back is a surefire way to erode trust and damage your reputation.
Oh, absolutely. Gossip is a trap. It might seem harmless in the moment, but it can have a ripple effect, creating unnecessary drama and really damaging those important relationships. Plus, it takes energy away from more productive endeavors.
For sure. And it really speaks to the importance of clear communication and conflict resolution skills.
Mm,
Being able to address issues head on in a respectful and constructive way, that's essential for success in any area of life, whether it's personal relationships, professional collaborations, even navigating challenging negotiations.
totally. Now get ready for another mindset shift, because this millionaire actually encourages embracing mistakes.
Mm.
They view failures not as roadblocks, but as essential stepping stones on the path to success. They even share a personal anecdote about skiing with their son. The son fell a lot at first. But by embracing those falls as learning opportunities, he eventually became a much better skier than the millionaire themselves.
That's awesome. And it resonates with the research on what psychologists call a growth mindset. Instead of seeing setbacks as personal defeats, you reframe them as valuable opportunities to learn and improve. Think of it like this. Every time you stumble, you gather data that helps you course correct and make better decisions in the future.
I love that analogy, and they emphasize that learning from mistakes isn't just about bouncing back. It's about extracting those valuable lessons that can inform your future decisions. So instead of beating yourself up over a misstep, ask yourself, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
How can I use this experience to grow and improve?
It's a great point. It's about shifting your perspective from I failed to I learned. And that shift in mindset can be incredibly empowering.
Absolutely. And speaking of empowerment, this millionaire is also a big advocate for respecting elders. They point out that older generations have a wealth of knowledge and experience to share, but we often dismiss their insights as outdated or irrelevant.
It's like that saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. There's so much wisdom to be gained from listening to those who have walked the path before us, even if their experiences don't perfectly mirror our own.
Right. And they even suggest seeking out mentors or advisors from different generations. Highlighting that diverse perspectives can really enrich your understanding and help you avoid those common pitfalls.
It's about recognizing that wisdom can come from unexpected sources. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from those who have lived through different eras and faced different challenges.
Absolutely. It's a reminder to stay humble and curious throughout life, always open to learning from those around us, regardless of their age or background. But before we dive into the next batch of wisdom from this millionaire, I'm curious, has anyone ever given you advice that really stuck with you, something that shaped your decisions or outlook on life?
Oh, tons. I mean, my grandmother always used to tell me, it's not what you know, but who you know. And that kind of echoes this millionaire's next point.
No kidding. It's funny how those little nuggets of wisdom from our families sometimes align with those bigger principles of success. So what's this millionaire's take on connections?
Well, they really stress that building genuine relationships should be like a top priority. They actually say connections are more valuable than money in the bank. It's not about just seeing people as like potential assets or transactions. It's about genuinely investing in those relationships, being there for each other.
Yeah, this millionaire sounds like they have a really strong grasp of that.
Yeah.
The practical and the emotional intelligence that you need to navigate life. I bet that kind of approach to relationships translates really well into the work world too.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, their next few pieces of advice all fall under the theme of work and success, and they get into some really interesting productivity hacks and strategies.
Okay, I'm ready. Lay it on me.
Well, first up is a simple but powerful tip. Focus on one thing at a time. They actually call multitasking multi-failing. Yeah, because they're convinced that splitting your attention just leads to subpar results. So they're all about dedicating blocks of time to a single task and minimizing distractions as much as possible.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of doing a million things at once, but I can definitely see how that scattered approach could actually backfire.
Yeah.
And you end up being less productive in the long run.
Yeah, totally. And this ties back into that idea of deep work that we talked about earlier. When you can truly focus on one thing, you enter that state of flow, where your productivity and your creativity just soar.
It sounds like this millionaire is all about working smarter, not harder. Any other insights along those lines?
Oh yeah, for sure. The next one is golden. Don't be the best, be the only.
Whoa.
They believe in combining seemingly unrelated skills to carve out a unique niche.
That's so interesting. It reminds me of this concept called skill stacking, like finding those unusual intersections of knowledge and expertise that really set you apart from the competition.
Exactly. And they use the example of Steve Jobs. He famously combined his knowledge of calligraphy with his passion for technology to create Apple's iconic user interface. It's those unexpected connections that can lead to really breakthrough innovations.
That's a fantastic example. It makes me wonder, what unique combination of skills do I have? that I could leverage to create something truly special?
No, that's the million-dollar question. Maybe literally.
Yeah.
And speaking of embracing the unconventional, this millionaire also really encourages a proactive approach to change. They're a firm believer that if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude about it. And never complain.
It's such a powerful message about taking ownership, focusing on what you can control. It's so easy to get caught up in complaining about things, but that often just drains our energy and doesn't actually solve anything.
You're telling me. And this also relates to their advice on working smarter, not harder. They highlight the power of technology and using tools to streamline your processes, to automate tasks.
Yeah, it's not about cutting corners. It's about leveraging those resources that are available to us and finding those efficient solutions. And with all the advancements we're seeing in AI and automation these days, this advice is more relevant than ever.
Totally. They even mention a specific tool that helps you build an e-commerce website super quickly and easily. It's a perfect example of working smarter, not harder.
That's awesome. I think it's a great reminder that we need to stay informed about those new tools and resources that can help us be more productive and more efficient in our work.
Right. Now, on a different note, this millionaire also stresses the importance of learning from everyone. They admit that in their 20s, they had a bit of an arrogance problem, thinking they knew everything. But they've since learned the value of staying humble and open to learning from anyone, regardless of their age or experience.
Yeah, I think we've all been there at some point.
Yeah.
Especially when we're first starting out in our careers. It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking we have it all figured out.
It is. But this millionaire really emphasizes continually seeking out new perspectives and knowledge. They say some of their most valuable lessons have actually come from the most unexpected sources.
It's a good reminder that every interaction holds the potential for learning something new. Have you had any experiences like that, where you were surprised by who or what taught you something valuable?
Oh gosh, all the time. Even just last week, I was having coffee with a college student. He was interning at my company. And in our conversation, he brought up this perspective on social media marketing that I had never even considered before. It really challenged my assumptions and gave me some new ideas to explore.
That's awesome. That's a great example of how learning can happen anywhere, anytime, if we're open to it. And it kind of circles back to that earlier point about respecting elders. Sometimes the roles are reversed, and we can learn a lot from younger generations, too.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that wisdom isn't tied to age or experience. It's about being open to learning from everyone we encounter.
Now, before we move on, I want to touch on a piece of advice that really resonated with me. The idea of living in the moment. Not on your phone. This millionaire emphasizes savoring experiences and being present, instead of constantly trying to capture everything for social media.
Oh, that's huge these days. We're so accustomed to documenting every moment that we sometimes forget to actually experience it fully,
Exactly.
Okay.
And they're not just talking about big life events. They're talking about those everyday moments, a conversation with a friend, a walk in nature, a delicious meal. They encourage you to truly savor those experiences without feeling the need to broadcast them to the world.
It's about being mindful and present in the moment. And there's actually a lot of research on the benefits of mindfulness for both our mental and physical well-being.
For sure. When we're constantly distracted by our phones, we miss out on the richness of the present moment. We might even miss those subtle cues that can lead to deeper connections and insights.
Totally. It's almost like we're trading those real-life experiences for digital representations of them. And while there's certainly a place for sharing our lives online, I think it's important to strike a balance and prioritize those authentic, unfiltered moments.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder to put the phone down every once in a while and just be present.
Speaking of being present, this millionaire also has some interesting advice on dealing with tough situations. They encourage facing challenges head-on instead of avoiding them. They actually believe that tackling the most difficult task first thing in the morning can set a really positive tone for the entire day.
That's a bold strategy. Do they offer any tips on how to actually approach those daunting tasks without getting totally overwhelmed?
Yeah, they recommend breaking down large projects into smaller, more manageable steps. They believe that even making a small amount of progress on a challenging task can create momentum and boost your confidence.
That makes a lot of sense. Sometimes just getting started is the hardest part, but once you take that first step, it often becomes easier to keep the ball rolling.
Exactly. And that sense of accomplishment from completing even a small part of a challenging task can really fuel your motivation to keep going.
Now, before we move on to the next section, I do want to touch on a piece of advice that might be particularly relevant for our male listeners. The millionaire's insistence on always paying the bill.
Oh, that's an interesting one. It seems to be rooted in more traditional notions of chivalry and masculinity. Do you think that advice still holds up in today's world?
It's definitely a conversation starter. On the one hand, it's a gesture of generosity. It can be a way of showing respect and care. But on the other hand, it can also perpetuate some outdated gender roles and assumptions about who should be financially responsible.
That's a good point. I think it's important to consider the context and the intention behind the gesture, and to be mindful of how our actions might be perceived by others.
Totally. It's a great example of how even well-intentioned advice can sometimes require a bit of critical thinking and adaptation to align with our personal values and the evolving norms of society.
Exactly. It's about being thoughtful and intentional in our actions, and always striving to create a more equitable and respectful world.
Speaking of creating a better world, this millionaire also emphasizes the importance of saying no when you need to. They say it's okay to admit you're not ready for something or that you need more time.
Oh, that's so important. Saying yes to everything can lead to burnout and resentment. It's about setting healthy boundaries and protecting your time and energy.
For sure. It's about recognizing your own limitations and prioritizing your well-being. And sometimes saying no to something that doesn't align with your goals or your values can actually open up opportunities for something even better down the line.
So true. It's about making conscious choices and being deliberate about how you spend your time and your energy. And that kind of ties into their advice about being really intentional about how you present yourself to the world. They encourage you to think about the image you want to project, from the way you dress to what you post on social media.
It's about crafting your personal brand and reputation. And in a world where first impressions matter more than ever, I think that's really valuable advice.
Yeah, and it's not about being fake or trying to be someone you're not. It's about presenting your authentic self in a way that aligns with your goals and your values.
Now get ready for this next piece of advice because it might catch you off guard. The millionaire actually reminds us to mentally prepare for the loss of loved ones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not the most pleasant thought, I know, but it's a reality we all face at some point.
It is. It's a good reminder to appreciate the people in our lives and make the most of every moment we have with them. It also highlights the importance of emotional resilience and having coping mechanisms in place for when those inevitable, difficult times come up.
Yeah, it's about acknowledging the fragility of life.
Yeah.
And cherishing those we love while we have the chance. And while it might seem counterintuitive, mentally preparing for those tough times can actually help us navigate them with more grace and strength when they do inevitably arrive.
Absolutely. It's about building our emotional resilience and developing healthy coping mechanisms that allow us to process grief and loss in a way that honors our loved ones and allows us to move forward with strength and purpose.
And that ties into their advice on not taking rejection personally. Whether it's a job interview or a personal setback, they encourage you to see things from the other person's perspective and to use feedback as an opportunity for growth.
It's a great mindset shift. I love the idea that rejection is often a redirection. It's an opportunity to learn and grow and refine your approach.
I love that. It's about reframing rejection as a stepping stone on the path to success.
Speaking of stepping stones, this millionaire actually encourages taking naps.
What?
Yeah, they used to think naps were for kids and old people, but now they see them as a productivity hack.
And there's a lot of scientific evidence to back that up. Power naps can really improve your alertness and your creativity, even your memory. It's like hitting the reset button on your brain and giving yourself a boost of energy to tackle the rest of the day. So it's not just about laziness. It's about strategically using rest to enhance our productivity and well-being. And speaking of enhancing well-being, they also recommend making time for activities that bring you joy, even if they don't directly contribute to your career goals.
Right. It's about recognizing that we're more than just our jobs or our accomplishments. We need time to recharge and pursue our passions, whether it's art, music, sports, or simply spending time with loved ones.
And that ties into their advice about not comparing yourself to others. Everyone's on their own journey, and as long as you're making progress towards your own goals, you're on the right track.
It's so easy to get caught up in the comparison game, though, especially with social media constantly showcasing everyone's highlight reel. But this millionaire reminds us that everyone faces challenges and setbacks, even those who seem to have it all together.
It's about focusing on our own journey and celebrating our own wins, big and small. And speaking of celebrating wins, I want to touch on a piece of advice that really stood out to me, the idea of being fueled by vision, not fear.
Ooh, that's a powerful distinction. Fearful people tend to focus on what they might lose, while visionary people see possibilities and opportunities.
Exactly. It's about having that growth mindset and embracing those challenges as stepping stones to something greater. And it ties into their advice on being motivated by something greater than money.
That's where purpose and meaning come into play. When your work is aligned with your values and you're driven by a sense of purpose, it becomes more than just a job. It becomes a mission.
Yeah. It's about finding that sweet spot where your passions and your skills intersect with a need in the world. And that's when the magic really happens.
And that magic often involves standing up for what you believe in, even when it's difficult. This millionaire actually shares a story about staying in a job too long because they were letting their manager kind of push them around. They finally quit and started their own business, realizing they deserve to be treated with respect.
That's powerful. It speaks to the importance of self-respect and setting boundaries. It's also a reminder that sometimes walking away is the best option, even if it feels scary or uncertain in the moment.
And that brings us to a really interesting concept. The idea of using your unfair advantages.
Unfair advantages?
Yeah, they encourage you to identify your unique strengths and circumstances and leverage them to your advantage.
So it's about recognizing what sets you apart and using it to your benefit. It could be anything from your cultural background to your network of connections to a specific skill set you've developed.
Exactly. And it's not about taking advantage of others. It's about using your unique strengths to create value and achieve your goals.
It's about playing to your strengths and finding ways to make your unique qualities work for you. Speaking of making things work for you, this millionaire also has some really sage advice about finances.
Oh yeah, they get very specific about money management and investing. Some of their tips might surprise you.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Spill the tea. What are some of their financial gems?
Well, one of the big things they emphasize is to avoid those flashy cars, especially in your 20s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they see it as a waste of money and encourage buying used and reliable instead.
It's a good point. Financial stability isn't about keeping up with the Joneses or trying to impress people with fancy cars. It's about making smart choices that align with your long-term goals.
Exactly. And speaking of long-term goals, they're a huge advocate for investing early and often, especially for retirement. They believe in the power of compound interest, that idea that your money can grow exponentially over time if you start investing early.
It's like planting a seed and watching it grow into a mighty tree. The earlier you plant that seed, the more time it has to flourish.
Right. But they also caution against blindly following the crowd or falling for those get-rich-quick schemes.
Oh, of course.
They really stress the importance of doing your own research, understanding the risks involved. Before putting your hard-earned money into anything, they actually recommend seeking out mentors or advisors, people who can provide guidance and help you make informed decisions.
It's like having a financial Sherpa to guide you through that complex world of investing. Now, this next piece of advice might surprise you. The millionaire says that being a great storyteller can get you anything you want.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never thought about it that way.
It's about capturing attention, making your ideas memorable, and really connecting with people on a deeper level.
I guess that makes sense. When you think about the power of communication and persuasion, stories are how we make sense of the world and connect with each other, right?
Right.
Whether you're pitching a business idea, trying to inspire a team, or simply sharing an experience with friends, the ability to tell a compelling story can really make all the difference.
And this millionaire actually gives some practical tips for honing your storytelling skills, like studying great speeches and presentations, and practicing your delivery in front of a mirror.
So it's a skill that can be learned and improved upon, just like anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, shifting gears a bit, this millionaire also stresses the importance of living a life that's true to yourself, not dictated by, the expectations of others.
Oh, I like that.
They encourage you to pursue your own passions, even if they don't align with what society or your family might expect of you.
It's about having the courage to forge your own path, even if it means going against the grain. Defining success on your own terms, not based on someone else's definition.
Exactly. And speaking of definitions, this millionaire shares their own personal paycheck routine. It's a really simple but effective system for managing money and prioritizing financial goals.
Oh, interesting. So like a budget in action.
Yeah, exactly.
Not about deprivation, but about making conscious choices with your money.
Exactly. And ensure that your spending aligns with your values and your priorities. They also recommend setting up automatic savings and investment plans so that you're consistently putting money aside for your future goals without having to think about it.
It's about automating those good financial habits, so you don't have to rely solely on willpower, which, as we discussed earlier, can be a finite resource.
Right. And while this millionaire definitely advocates for financial responsibility, they also offer some reassurance for anyone who might be feeling a little lost or uncertain about their path. They emphasize that it's not the end of the world if you don't have everything figured out in your 20s.
That's good to hear. I think a lot of people feel pressured to have it all together by a certain age.
Yeah.
But life is a journey, not a destination. It's okay to embrace the uncertainty and the detours along the way.
Exactly. And they encourage you to see those detours as opportunities for growth and exploration. Speaking of exploration, they're also a big believer in the power of asking good questions.
Oh, absolutely. Thoughtful questions can lead to really insightful answers and open doors to new possibilities. Whether you're in a meeting, a networking event, or simply having a conversation with a friend, asking good questions can really spark new ideas and deepen your understanding.
They actually recommend making a habit of jotting down questions that come to mind throughout the day, and then seeking out answers through research conversations or even just observation.
It's about cultivating curiosity and a thirst for knowledge, recognizing that learning is a lifelong pursuit.
And speaking of lifelong pursuits, this millionaire also emphasizes that the journey is just as important as the destination. They encourage you to savor those experiences along the way and to find joy in the process even when things get tough.
It's about recognizing that success isn't just about achieving goals, it's about living a fulfilling and meaningful life along the way.
And they remind us that even though retirement might seem far off, it's never too early to start planning and investing for it. The power of compound interest can work wonders over time, allowing your money to grow exponentially if you start early and stay consistent.
It's a good reminder that our future selves will thank us for the choices we make today. And they wrap things up with a beautiful sentiment. Enjoy the journey, not just the destination.
It's about being present in each moment and appreciating the little things along the way. And finally, they emphasize that nothing in life is truly free. If you're not spending money, you're spending time, which is equally valuable.
It's about being mindful of how we allocate our resources, whether it's time, money, or energy, making choices that align with our values and priorities.
It's about recognizing that every decision has a cost, whether it's financial, emotional, or in terms of our time and energy. And it's about making choices that are in our best interest, both in the short term and the long term.
And they leave us with one last piece of advice, which might be the most important of all. Stop waiting for inspiration and just get started.
Yeah, action often breeds motivation. And sometimes the best way to figure out what you want and how to achieve it is to simply start moving in a direction that feels aligned with your values and goals.
It's about embracing the power of experimentation and iteration. Don't be afraid to try new things, make mistakes, and course correct along the way.
Wow, that was a whirlwind of wisdom. It's amazing how much ground we covered. From mindset and habits to relationships, work finances, even the importance of storytelling and living in the moment. Were there any surprises for you in this deep dive?
Honestly, I was really struck by how much they emphasized storytelling. It's not something you typically think of as a financial skill, but it makes so much sense when you consider how important communication and persuasion are in all aspects of life, including building a successful business or career.
Absolutely. It's about going beyond just the numbers and connecting with people on a deeper level. And it's a skill that anyone can develop with practice.
You know, it makes me think, if our listeners could ask this millionaire one follow-up question, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a great question to ponder. We encourage you to revisit those points that really resonated with you and think about how you might apply them to your own life. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and insights.
And remember, the journey to success is ongoing. It's about constantly learning, growing, and evolving, and ultimately finding what works for you to create a life that's both fulfilling and meaningful.
So go out there and apply some of this wisdom. And hey, if you become a millionaire, don't forget about your old podcast pals. We'd love to hear your success story.